Welcome to the Penguin Magic Podcast. I'm your host, Erik. Joining me as always, my good buddy and co-host, Nick Lacapo. Nick, how you doing?
Fresh out of bed. This will be a good one.
You got some coffee with you?
I made it. It's a little not even warm, you know?
On the show this week, we are talking Mental Block Die, Bottle Pocket by Michael Chatelain, and then the main event is Jamy Ian Swiss. Sat down for an expansive interview with me yesterday about Geoff Latta and the Pink Purse tapes, as well as 52 Farewells and The Long Goodbye. But Nick, what's going on in your world right now?
Oh, wow. Actually.
Any avalanche of mail after the bombshell podcast last week?
Oh, well, yeah, there was plenty of that for sure. I was getting a lot of mail originally, and then after the podcast, even more. But check out what I got in the mail.
Ooh.
I totally forgot. I got like right here. It just happened to work out.
Is that a crystal ball?
This is a crystal ball.
Ooh.
This is not any crystal ball. So it's the first time I've seen it in the light, actually. So this was my grandmother's. And I've got like this much story on it.
Okay.
But I know there's like this much story on it. This crystal ball here, I'll get the real story and maybe I'll tell it like next time. But here are the names involved with this crystal ball.
Okay.
My grandmother, who was a very spooky lady, John Lennon, Yoko Ono, Bobby Hebb, Quincy Jones, and I don't know if you know of her, but the one and only Lori Cabot.
Lori Cabot's the one that I'm not clocking immediately out. I'm sure I've heard of her.
She is the High Witch of Salem, Massachusetts.
That is why I know her. Yes.
Yeah. So I believe this ball, it has passed hands with all of them. It was a gift between a lot of them. My grandmother used to like do psychic readings for Yoko Ono. So anyway, I'm pretty sure this ball has been cursed by a real witch. So anyway, that was my aunt gave it to me in the mail the other day. So yeah, that's very cool.
Well, you gotta get the full story on that. Also,
yeah,
I can already see Josh, our social media guy, clipping out.
Oh no! Oh yeah.
My grandmother used to give psychic readings to Yoko Ono. That's going to be all over the social media reels. That's a gorgeous. Yeah. That's a real crystal, isn't it?
Yeah. Can you see anything in there? I don't know. Is that some crystal gazing?
4 of clubs, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
There you go. So just carrying around that cursed object in my backpack at the moment.
I just bombing around Chicago with a cursed crystal ball.
Yep.
Well, speaking of psychic phenomena, Mental Block Die came out this week.
That's a great trick.
Yes.
This is the kind of the next evolution of the Mental Block with Dan Harlan. We all know this trick. It's the color vision, TV vision box that has come in a lot of different magic kits. The one where you have a block with different colors on it, and then you have somebody think of one, and it goes in the box. It was upgraded with Mental Block. It's made out of wood, and it's just a really nice prop. It's a little bit bigger. It's something that you'd be, proud to own and perform for somebody, as opposed to, maybe the blue plastic box works for some people. It doesn't quite work for me, but so the Mental Block die is the same thing, except now it's a wooden die that gets to be put in the box as opposed to the child's block.
I teach it and I adapt sort of Dan Harlan's multiple senses routine. I streamline it down a little bit so that it's 3 phases, but I keep the block vanish at the end. I also make it more impossible by using features and qualities of the die so that you can, at first they're putting it in so they see the number, and then they're putting it in so the number's face down, and then finally they're putting it in so the number is facing one of the sides. It's a really fun prop. I had a tremendous amount of fun performing with the original mental block in Blackpool, because I think a lot of magicians have sort of forgotten about the color vision or television box, and I fooled the heck out of them with it. It was really fun, and it's an
It's
instantly engaging prop for audiences. I keep one on my mantle, and I've had at least 4 visitors go, "What's that little wooden box?" And that just like it invites you to perform it.
a good trick. I think a lot of, at least our customers, I feel like a lot are familiar with it, and you forget how good of a trick it is because it's just something that you've kind of maybe passed over after over all the years here, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, man, it doesn't, it's never gotten bad. That trick is very good. People love that trick.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it gets great reactions. Um, and like Dan's addition to the block vanishing is super fun. It's
Yeah, that's
definitely one of
a
those where you're taking along this mentalism route, this mental magic route, and then suddenly it becomes a magic trick where the block disappears, and
mhm.
it's so strong because it catches them completely off guard.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was excited to see the die. The die almost like nothing wrong with the block. The block's great, but the it almost demanded the die. Like when you
Mhm,
saw like the wooden box itself, like when you kind of grew the whole trick up, it
mhm.
kind of felt like it should be different. But yeah, the die fits it perfectly.
Oh, yeah. Also out this week, not from Penguin, but we promoted it, and, I think a lot of people were pretty excited about it, was Bottle Pocket by Michael Chatelain, Urbane, and Gentleman's Magic. This was the original, bottle was a huge hit at Blackpool one year. Michael Chatelain had this really cool effect with a glass jar with a big cork in it, and he made a coin vanish and then reappear inside the cork bottle. And now they're back with, a pocket-sized version of it. It's a small little bottle. It looks like I've got the page up here on my desktop, and it looks like it's about half the size, maybe a third.
Yeah, it's a real small bottle, like
Yeah.
it's nice as palm of your hand type thing, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's very, very tiny. And the method is kind of fun. We won't dive too far into the method here. Just know that uh, you make something appear inside of a bottle with a
With a cork in it. So
little tap on the top.
yeah, the method's good. I mean, the method achieves what you want it to do, and that is make something appear inside of a bottle. Um, I know a lot of people are excited about this trick, and we're
Mhm.
excited about it then. And it's a great walk around, quick visual thing to accomplish that. Just that.
Yeah.
What's the good trick in there? Because I watched this trick like months and months ago.
Mhm.
Was it the it's is it the one with the candy? Because you
Yeah.
can, it's not just making something appear. Can't you do like a loose load of something?
Yes, I believe
Uh,
so. So the I've got the trailer running up here right now, and you can do a loose load. There's like some coin stuff. There's a really interesting salt pour thing where you like
Right.
pour salt out of it and then make the salt appear back into it. Uh, it looks like there's also some stuff with candy where you like have somebody select candy out from your hand. Or they select like one color, like you've got like M&Ms
Right,
or
right.
Skittles or something, and when you drop it over the thing, the selected color appears inside. So
That's what I was remembering. Yeah.
this isn't just like a one trick pony. There's a lot of different options and routining abilities with this. Also,
Yeah.
I don't know whose child that is in the demo. That's like the little kid with like the missing a tooth who's like going
Yeah.
crazy over the candy, but that's some pretty smart marketing right there.
Kids had too much candy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think this is gonna be fun. I'm I'm waiting on after we got off, the podcast last week, I immediately ordered Firefly by Titanus, so I'm waiting for that to show up.
still don't have that. Okay.
I'm hoping it shows up before I leave, for
Yeah, I
California.
still have yet to see that one.
Mhm.
Um, no, I haven't seen it in person yet.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I wanna play with it. Uh, the main event this week is Jamy Ian Swiss talking, about Geoff Latta and 52
Mm.
Farewells. This
Oh,
is,
you did get him on. That's great.
yeah, so what's funny is, when I was at Abercorn Dabra, I, hung out with Peter Samuelson. who is the one who actually filmed the pink purse tape. And then uh, Peter told me a little bit about what was going on and was saying you should get Jamy Ian Swiss, and then you were saying I should get Jamy Ian Swiss, and I was even thinking I should get Jamy Ian Swiss. So I reached out, and he immediately said yes. And he was like, I know we're promoting the book, but can we talk about like Geoff Latta's impact as a whole? And I was like, absolutely, because like Jamy was one
No,
of
this is where
Jeff's
you do that.
Jamy was one of Jeff's closest friends, and uh, I think what people are really going to like in the upcoming interview you're about to hear is he talks a lot about how Latta thought and how he was really precise with his sleights and just like really worked hard to make them great. And a lot of the stuff that we do today is it directly traced back to Geoff Latta.
When I was listening to Jamy talk about some of these things, and who was I hanging out? I was hanging out with somebody else that was kind of speaking to the same thing. But yeah, there's just so many refinements on moves and sleights that we all do, but we had no idea that it came from Geoff Latta, you know. So and Jamie's right. When you flip through that book, none of it feels dated.
Mhm.
It all feels brand new and like cutting edge.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we get in like books that we are publishing or promoting or whatever, and if it's celebrating the magic of whoever, a lot of times if there's any sleight of hand in the book and it's old, the sleight of hand can be kind of frozen in time from
Mhm.
its era. Makes it hard to sell sleight of hand in books. Not this though. This is different. A lot of these moves, if you're a real sleight of hand person, there's things in here
Yep.
for you, little touches and refinements that you either have already been aware of them, or they're the ones the ones that you're using, or a few that slip through the cracks that you'll really love.
And people should go back and check out The Long Goodbye because the
Right.
the the 3 coin production, vanish, and reproduction of coins that is built around 2 coins and a shell is, a lot of people associate it with Troy Hoosier and Homer Lewag, but as you'll hear in the podcast, it's directly related to Jeff.
Mm.
So,
Oh, I believe it now.
yeah.
You know what? I guess that when the first book came out, I'm new to Geoff Latta. Like I completely like a newbie when it comes to Geoff Latta. But when the first book came out on the coins, what was that called? The Long Goodbye? Is
Long
that what you
Goodbye.
just said?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I didn't really know who it was or why I should read it, but the stuff that kind of like the marketing materials around the card book here, 52 Farewells, I was like, wait, who is this guy?
Yeah.
This guy seemed like like somebody that we would have hung out with.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's exciting that you got Jamie on
Yeah.
the podcast because I wanted to get more on that story.
Well, let's stop teasing him, and we'll kick it over to past me and Jamy Ian Swiss. Nick, I'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Thanks, as always, to Nick for being on the show. On to the main event. Regular listeners to the show will know Jamy Ian Swiss is a longtime book reviewer for Genie Magazine, influential thinker in magic, and a wonderful performer in his own right. Those of you who have a keen eye in historical records will know him as a close friend and confidant of Geoff Latta, whose material has become legend through the pink purse tape. With the release of 52 Farewells, I thought it only right to discuss Jamie's long history with Geoff, so I caught up with Jamy via Zoom, and now you get to join our conversation. Jamy Ian Swiss, thanks so much for joining me back on the Penguin Magic podcast. Here to talk about Geoff Latta. And obviously the 52 Farewells has come out, The Long Goodbye had come out, but you play a particularly interesting role in this work coming to light, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this has been a long-standing project, and I have had my hands in it quite thoroughly, but I did not write these books. These books were written jointly by Stephen Hobbs, who began the project years ago when Richard Kaufman first contracted with Geoff Latta for the book. But for a combination of reasons, as I discuss in the introduction, eventually the book changed hands to Stephen Minch, and Hobbs and Minch wrote both books, The Long Goodbye, which is the coin book, and now 52 Farewells, which is the card book, wrote those books jointly. However, in Geoff's absence, I played a key editorial role. I was intimately involved with every aspect of the book because Geoff was my close friend and he was a very big influence, and I knew his material. I know his material intimately. I know it inside and out. I do a lot of it. I do a lot of his sleight of hand technique. Um, and perhaps above all, not only from on the mechanical side and the repertoire side, but I knew his thinking. I knew how his mind worked. I knew um, what his approach was. And so, to Minch's and Hobbes' great credit, they really wanted that in the book. And Minch has always been good at uh, keeping the author, the creator's voice present in the book. And sometimes a book like the Aritology of Vani Bossi, it's just an unheralded treasure of material, incredible, fantastic book. But sadly, Vani died too soon and too quickly to really be able to share all of his thinking and internal workings about the material. And it shows in the book, much to Stephen's frustration. So I was able to provide that in these two books, and I went through this material in great care and great detail. And there's a number of routines in both books that were not recorded anywhere in the record, except they were in my head. And so we managed to get a few more routines in both books that weren't really available elsewhere, and that Geoff had never actually set down. And then on top of all that, I posed for all the illustrations, which is a very frustrating and humbling thing for me, because I also know what Geoff's hands look like, and even though I do some of his technique, like, Geoff was the one guy that for all the years I knew him, you know, I I would watch him do something, and I just think, well, I just have stumps on the end of my wrists.
It's I want to talk about the Think Purse tapes eventually, but that's such a small part of what made Geoff so important to the world of magic. I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of things that people do these days that don't realize are actually traced back to Geoff Latta,
Well,
that are sort of
Latta,
the common way that we teach them now.
yeah, and Latta was influential, foundationally influential in a number of interesting and different ways. I think perhaps the two most top of mind elements. One has to do with the classic pass. So Geoff was a master of the classic shift, and he did many shifts, but he devised this unique shift that he called the missing frame pass, also known as the slow riffle. And there's just no other shift that looks like it. It's not really a shift that's made for visual changes and so on. It's made as a control. And it's a control that, the way Geoff did it, viewers could just watch your hands and experience a magical effect. They have no idea how the card rises to the top. And that's how I use it as well in something like an ambitious card routine. And this was a synthesis of many different ideas. Uh, Derek Dingle was the key uh, link in this evolution, because uh, Derek Dingle, in the collected works written by Richard Kaufman, Derek thanks Howie Schwartzman for teaching him in the past and Ken Krenzel for teaching him refinements. And those two guys were the New York, among the core of the New York Vernon acolytes, the next generation of Vernon guys, along with Herb Zarrow and Howie Schwartzman, who influenced the next generation. And Howie and Krenzel were the two leading exponents of the classical pass at that time. The move was not popular at the time, other than to use it heavily misdirected, quiet, quick, utility kind of move. Howie had this perfect still hand, no movement cover, and the greatest shift of that sort I ever saw. And Krenzel developed all these refinements to add speed and tension and so forth. And then Derek took all that, and when the Elias Taylor Jiggle Pass came out, which introduced the diagonal action of the top packet, which changes the angles and improves the angles, Derek incorporated that, and Derek revolutionized the pass and also completely popularized it. He rejuvenated interest in the pass, especially in the East Coast at the time in the 80s. And Latta, in turn, was influenced by Derek. We were all profoundly influenced by Derek. I've written extensively about Dingle and repeatedly over the years. And then Latta took all that and moved forward with it in his own ways. And the penultimate, not the penultimate, the pinnacle of that was the slow pass. And part of the slow pass, only part, but part of the mechanics of the slow pass involved this cocking of the wrists.
Yeah.
And that leaked out through the pink purse tape. And so today, I mean, if you go on Instagram and find young guys doing the pass, you're going to see many of them cocking the wrist, and they don't understand why they're doing it. They don't know why they're doing it. And if you're not doing it with Geoff's mechanics, it actually serves no purpose. It looks odd in many cases, but nevertheless, that action became integral. And then on the other side of Geoff's influence, one of his most influential routines is the standing chord, which was a version of the Elfenhort, but actually both those tricks, the Elfenhort and the standing hort, which was a 3-coin routine that was a vanish of 3 coins and a reappearance of 3 coins that was astonishingly clean, ludicrously clean. And it was done with 2 coins and a shell with unique construction. And that construction filtered out, particularly with what's his name's routine?
Homer Leewag?
Troy
Troy Hoosier. Yeah.
Troy Hoosier's routine, the extraordinary routine,
Yeah.
which in turn was extremely influential, and changed and took that idea even further, and then others further developed that, Chris Korn and Homer and so on and so forth, and everybody does a version of that, including myself. But the foundational construction and idea of that routine, it comes from Geoff.
What was it about the way he thought that made his approach to sleight of handed routining so revolutionary?
Like most great magicians, like the greatest magicians I've known, had the privilege to know and call my friends in my life, people like Tommy Wonder and comes to mind right away, and of course Tamarese, and actually I would include Gaetan Bloom in that. Like all true masters, Geoff had an obsessive attention to detail, and he knew what he was trying to accomplish, and he was brutally analytical. And as he developed, there came a time, he even said this to me, there came a time when he said, you know what, I'm not reading any new books anymore. I'm putting all the other books on the shelf, back on the shelf, and I'm just working from Erdnase and from Vernon's Book of Magic and the other Vernon books, and his own ideas and his own work. And that was it. And he was relentlessly reviewing this kind of material and looking for refinements, additions, improvements. That's on the technical side. And as I say in the trailer for 52 Farewells, even though 52 Farewells is filled with incredibly practical, useful material, just fantastic tricks, truly fantastic tricks. But I really love chapter 2, this Palme d'Or, that has a handful of these fundamental sleights that are in some cases, Geoff's take on, specifically on existing sleights, and that some are just his original engineering. And engineering is the key word. Geoff always believed in what he called engineered moves. He liked moves that were mechanically sound and that therefore gave you absolute consistency every time. He didn't like moves that were sort of guesswork and loosey-goosey around the edges, so to speak. yes, he was renowned for his Hang Ping Chen handling, and that was one of the rare moves that does depend on inertia, and it's a slightly unpredictable. But even then, he tried to engineer that move. But in general, his approach to palming and side steals and things like that, they take existing work and they take it a degree and a step further. And I really think any student, even advanced, perhaps especially advanced, but I think whether you're intermediate and learning and studying things like palming and side steals and so on, or you're an advanced, accomplished sleight of hand artist with a long history with those sleights, you will gain something from his handlings. And most, if not all, of the handlings in that chapter are my fundamental tools for these sleights. These are the versions of the top palm that I use. These are the versions of the side steal that I use, because they're so utilitarian. And he wanted that kind of mechanical, predictable precision, and to eke out every ounce of imperfection, right, and make them visually perfect.
It's there's a when you watch Geoff perform these moves and routines in the video that is accompanied the books, but precision is absolutely the term that comes to mind because it's just perfect. I mean, it fools the camera, it fools the eye. It's mechanically sound is not something that I would have thought of, but that's actually the only real descriptor that you can apply to it.
Yeah, and it's true of the sleights,
Mhm.
cards and coins, and it's true in many cases of the tricks also. There's elements, Josh J in his comments that we have in the introduction to 52 Farewells, um, he talks about this, level of detail he'd never seen, and he specifically talks about this one trick of Jeff's where there's this added detail that blew Josh's mind when he saw it on the video, because you have a trick. It's one of Jeff's several versions of the collectors that
Mhm.
I consider the definitive approach to the plot, because it's the absolutely pure and it's also visual. There's no nonsense of bringing the cards together and then away from the deck and all counts and all this nonsense. It just happens the way it should happen. But there's an extra detail where, to a magician, there's obviously a series of shifts going on that are causing these cards to change at the top of the deck, and a trick called the dazzling interchange. And yet he repeatedly flashes the bottom card and it never changes. you know, and you might think that's an insane attention to detail and the work that it takes to do, but actually it makes the trick. It's not just that magicians notice that, it makes the trick even more impenetrable, that what you see is what you get, that what you're seeing is actually happening, And as far as the engineering things, in the coin book, I think I recount this in the introduction, that Geoff, at a rare lecture that Geoff gave at the Tannen's Jubilee, and I think it was 1980, and I'm sitting in the back of the room, and Geoff is doing his his Okido coin box routine, which is a sort of out in out kind of thing, because sort of like the Roth effect, but Jeff's handling. And it is this series of incredible sleights that are, he makes it look effortless and seamless. And it's on the pink purse tape. And I remember at one point, some guy is sitting next to me in the back of the room, turns to me and he says, "The hell with the effect. The explanations are fooling me."
So we've mentioned the pink purse tapes a little bit, and I think for listeners and viewers who are unfamiliar with them, this is this was the holy grail underground tape that everybody. I mean, I remember my own search to get a copy of the pink purse tape because I wanted to see this thing. But it's you and Peter Samuelson and Geoff Latta and a video camera, and it's how did that come about? Uh, Samuelson
Yeah.
told me there was an otter at some point.
Say that again.
Samuelson told me there was an otter at some
Well, that
point.
had nothing to do with that. That had to do with my other life at the time.
Yeah.
Um, I have that. Yeah, that's irrelevant.
Yep.
So Latta, I was friendly through correspondence with Roger. I had grown friendly through correspondence with Roger Clouds. I had bought a set of his lecture notes from Jeff Busby and wrote Roger a letter, as we did in those days. And he and I had struck up a correspondence, and then Jeff did another rare convention appearance in that era down in Texas, and met up with Roger at the time. And as a result of those two things, Roger arranged for Jeff and I to come to Atlantic City and have a session with Michael Skinner. Michael Skinner, who was a resident performer for much of his career in Las Vegas, thanks to Steve Wynn, would about once or twice a year for about a month would come to Atlantic City and work at the Gold Nugget at Atlantic City. And on weekends, magicians from the tri-state area, especially from New York, would go out session with him. And so Roger arranged for that to happen. And Jeff and I took a bus and went out there. And I was there really to promote Jeff. Jeff was actually kind of laid back and quiet, somewhat reticent about promoting himself. And I thought his work was so important. And I was so paranoid about it leaking out without credit that I was sort of self-styled promoter for Jeff in a way. Nothing he ever asked of me at all. And so we went out there for a session. It was the first time I met Michael, and that in itself was a profound experience for me, even more than Jeff. I really adored Michael's work, and Michael and I became good and lasting friends. And Michael was a real influence on me over the many years to come between then and his death. And Skinner was one of the greatest sleight of hand artists I ever knew, right along with Dingle. And so we went out there and had like a 24-hour session with Skinner. The next morning at breakfast, he was still going. Everybody else had gone to bed. He was still going, and Skinner was, a generation older than Jeff and I, and we were like just falling out, and he was still doing tricks. And during that session, Jeff demonstrated pretty much everything on the pink purse tape. That was all the current stuff at the time, including the shift. And those guys were super impressed, and they were not shy about saying so. They both repeatedly said they'd never seen anything like it. They were blown away, and they were very interested in the shift. And then in the aftermath, Roger asked repeatedly if Jeff would make a little video to lock in the details, give them the follow-up of the details, especially on the shift and other work. And Peter Samuelson was the first of us to own a video. Later, Peter would develop a part of his career in the video production business.
Yeah.
And he was the first one with a VHS camera. And after talking about it for 6 months and trying to get it together, eventually one night we all went up to Peter's loft in Manhattan. Peter handled the camera. I had an idea about the material and how to shoot some things. And Jeff came and was prepared. Well, was supposedly prepared, but in fact was not fully prepared, because he was the typical sort of absent-minded professor kind of guy. And even though we had been talking to him about this material for ages, and we had made lists and everything else, he manages to show up without a coin box and without the little black leather Japanese purse that he used for the trick Kopsel brass. And we came up with a coin box, but none of us had the purse. And Peter finds this little pink silk Chinese purse, this silly little thing. And Jeff makes do with that. And even on the camera, he says, well, with this thing, like this can never get out, okay? And because we were making a tape just for Michael and Roger, was the absolute explicit intention that this is not just for the underground, this is for them. And off camera, I ad lib, the legendary pink purse tapes. And Jeff repeats his, the pink purse tapes. And who knew, and what we didn't know, some period of time went by, 6 months, maybe a year at the most. And a guy I knew in Florida said to me, John LeClaire, one of the best invisible thread workers I ever knew, wrote the best book on the subject. The Art of Invisible Thread, would call me up one day and say, "Hey, I saw this tape of a guy doing the shift. It was really amazing." And I'm like, "What?" "Yeah." And I asked him a couple of pointed questions, and I realized he's describing the Pink Purse tape,
Mhm.
and I was horrified and appalled. I can't tell you, I really cannot adequately express how absolutely shocked
Mhm.
and angry I was about it, and also embarrassed because I had talked Geoff into doing this because I thought it would be good for him and would help protect the record, and instead, um, it had turned into fodder, um, for Roger's trading collection of videos,
Mhm.
and he was bootlegging it without restraint.
Wow.
And Jeff's video wasn't the only one of those that happened. It happened with other videos from Atlantic that were shot in Atlantic City of other performers and so on and so forth. But this was made for, Latta says on camera, "This is for you, Roger, for your eyes. Please make a copy for Michael. And if there's anybody else, just," and he kind of politely, because he's very conflict averse about such things, but he kind of says, "Let me know, check with me if you want to show it to somebody else."
Mhm.
And he says it very explicitly. It's right there on.
Yeah.
And the resulting damage of that was profound because especially the shift, it wasn't so much the tricks. It was the shift that leaked out all over the place and had this influence. And there were guys taking credit for elements of it.
Mhm.
And, um, and nobody knew. Nobody
Mhm.
knew what the real source was. And as you say, it did become a kind of, holy grail, or a really a symbol, the symbol of the underground when there really was still an underground. And we included in the introduction comments from two generations, Erik Mead and Josh J, who both got a hold of, really badly diminished,
Yeah.
multiple generation copies, and what a profound impact the tape had on them. So eventually, Peter Samuelson shot that.
Mhm.
At the time, there were copies made. The one that was sent to Roger,
Mhm.
one for Geoff, one for Peter, one for me. There were 4 copies made,
Mhm.
and Roger was supposed to send one to Michael, make a one for Michael.
Mhm.
Many years later, Michael and I had a conversation about it. I don't think I put this in the book. Many years later, Michael and I had a conversation about it one night, and he and Roger were famously good friends through most of their lives, although they did have some ups and downs later on. And Michael and I finally talked about it years later. And we were sitting in his car, and Michael said to me, "Well, I never got a copy."
You're serious?
Yeah.
So this video that was made specifically for Michael Skinner never made
Everybody
it to him.
everybody else got a copy.
That is wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an ugly story. It's a really
Yeah.
ugly story, and
Yeah.
I take no pleasure in telling it, but I do think it's important that it got told, and I recount it in the introduction to the book. Um, and fortunately, Peter still had original copy, and given the resolution, even of first generation VHS, it's not great,
Uh-huh.
but he digitized it, and we pulled out all the coin material for the version that's attached to The Long Goodbye, which is the coin book, and which came with a disc and is titled, and broken up. And then the card version, there's no disc. There's a link that's given in the book. Same thing, broken up by item with titles, and that's the card portion. And between the two, I think it's virtually 100% or very close to the entirety of the original video. And Penguin did a
Yeah.
very clever thing and a very unexpected thing. They asked me to make some comments on video about the book, and I assumed that you were going to do sort of the typical thing of a bunch of comments cut together for a trailer from a bunch of different people, and I suspect that was perhaps the original intent, actually. But then when the trailer dropped, which is only about 10 days ago or something, I was shocked to see that they took the video that I did off the top of my head. There's no script. And they basically used it intact and no one else's comments, and they intercut it quite nicely. I was really impressed with this, with clips from the Pink Purse tape, and you really kind of see what's going on there. And I was quite touched by that. I've had a lot of comments from friends and colleagues about it, about the trailer. So anyway, that's the legendary Pink Purse tape.
I'll pass those comments on to the editor who did it, because I know she was pretty excited about your comments because they were really great, and I'm glad that you like the way the card thing came out, because I actually did the first edit on the card video.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it was really special for me to do it, because I'll never forget the first time I sat in my bedroom watching that tape, and then getting to work on it years later was something special. What do you think Geoff Latta's lasting impression on magic will be?
Well, I really do think, and I could be accused of being somewhat biased here, but I really do think that these two books, are the kind of thing, they are the cream of publishing that rises to the top. We are continuing to produce massive numbers of magic books today, back to the numbers that we were doing in the 80s and 90s, the heyday of the 80s and 90s, and after a lull in the early 2000s. And some of these books are fine, and many of them are interesting to read once and put on the shelf, frankly, in my opinion. And I really hope that people take note of these books and the power of these books and put them on the other pile, the active pile of sitting and reading and thinking about them, but also sitting at the close-up pad in front of the mirror and working through these tricks and these materials. And again, these utilitarian sleights that if you even never end up using a trick, these sleights can change your work. I believe, and I'm not the only one, that the coin book, The Long Goodbye, is now in the pantheon of what many consider to be, well, what most considered previously to be the three great coin books, and I think that the Latta book is the fourth, which is to say Bobo's New Modern Coin Magic as the sort of fundamental text to learn these principles and ideas and props and things like that, construction, and then followed by Kaufman's Coin Magic, which completely captures that incredible intensity circa very early 1980s and the New York coin scene that was first and foremost profoundly influenced and led by Roth, and Roth's tremendous impact on coin magic. There's so much coin magic today that I see, on Instagram and in Facebook groups, and there's so much lack of awareness of how Roth changed everything. And part of Roth's impact was on Geoff. And we talk about that in the book. Geoff talks about it in the book, about David's impact on Latta, and then how Latta diverged. Because among other things, Latta was very interested in and uniquely talented at combining sleight of hand construction and gaffs judiciously used, not because they made the trick easier. I mean, I see all the time, every young coin guy, and he starts out, with these massively gaffed sets of coins and shells. And it's like, I rarely comment about such things, but I saw one a few weeks ago, and the guy says what do you think I should start with this set or this set or this set? And I said, why don't you just try, carrying 4 coins? That's what I do because I'm a magician. And that's not to say I don't use gaffs, but the thing is, you have to learn to use them. Skinner always said, a gaff is no good until you figure out how you get into it, how you get out of it, how you manage it. So anyway, but Latta, if you look at Copsol brass, where David Ross said, this is the greatest use of a copper silver coin in the history of coin magic. So, so I think that that the coin book is now the 4th of the great books. I started to say Bobo, Kaufman's Coin Magic, David Ross Expert Coin Magic, and the Latta book. Because the Latta coin book is filled with, again, utility techniques and tricks that stand out, routines. I constantly see moves on Instagram. I don't see routines. I don't see tricks where I go, you know what? I like that routine. I want to work on that routine. I don't see it. And it's the same thing with the card material here. I comment in the introduction, this material, it's more than 40 years old. It's closer to 50. And yet, this does not read like some out of the past book at all. This does not read like, a classic of the past. These are tricks that don't exist, that nobody else is doing tricks like these tricks. And, again, I mentioned like the collectors, even if you do the easier version of the collectors, you set the ace, you set the aces aside, you lose 4 selections, you put the aces face up on top of the deck, bang, they bend, you spread the deck, there's the collectors. Now, okay, there's an effect, right? There's a plot, execution of a plot. And there's many other things like that here. And I should mention, as far as influence, many people have seen the idea of a card extending from the corner of the pack and rising up through the pack like this. That's Latta's idea. Nobody ever used a shift like that before. And others created other versions, like famously Raise Rise, for example, which is great. But Latta he not only created the method, he created the effect, right? And so how often do people create effects like that, much less a visual effect like that? So I am hoping that people take note of the caliber and depth of these books, because I think they deserve to be lasting references and study material and material to use.
I know that they have an important place on my coffee table, not my shelf, but my coffee table.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Jamy, thanks so much for sharing your history of your friend Geoff Latta and sharing the insights that we can gain that only you can provide us with. Thanks so much for coming back on the show.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
You too.
That's going to do it for this week, kids. Thanks so much to Jamy for being on the show, and thanks to you for listening. Be sure to pick up your copy of 52 Farewells so you can start leveling up your magic. I've had a blast studying the material, and I know you will as well. Well, I'm about to leave for Los Angeles to visit the Magic Castle, where I'll be performing in the Parlor of Prestidigitation. I'm doing some last-minute prep on Nick the Duck as we speak. I can't wait to finally show my stage act to the magic world. As always, we're a weekly podcast, so be sure to like and subscribe, as well as share your favorite episodes on the social media platform that you search for Underground Magic videos on. If you wanted to reach out to me about anything on this week's show, you have to put it in the box of tissues that myself and Bree have been going through with the final episode of The Last of Us Season 2. That show keeps wrecking me emotionally, and I keep going back for more. What is wrong with us? I came to watch the mushroom people eat the villagers, but I stayed to see Bella Ramsey tear my soul to pieces. But if watching prestige dramas under a pile of chihuahuas isn't your cup of tea, you can always hit me up on Instagram at Erik Tait. That's at ERIKTAIT. From me and everyone else here at the P3 Magic Studios, practice, practice, perform.